Okay, so my guests are going to be every half an hour this week, and so standing by for Occupy the Courts, Lydia Radin. Lydia?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay, thank you for joining me on Organic News on Awake Radio.
Thank you so much for having me as your guest. I very much appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, you were, I do a lot of filming, and, Thursday during the 4th anniversary of Occupy, to be honest, because I'm not doing, right, fundraising is challenging, and so I actually can't even, afford to film as much as I would like to. Because then I just give myself work that I, don't get paid to do. So I wasn't able to.
Oh, it's perfectly all right, because one of my friends, Joe Friendly,
Oh,
who
yeah.
is a longtime independent TV producer with Manhattan Neighborhood Network,
Right.
actually took a film. I was very graciously invited to make a brief speech at Occupy.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I got a video from Joe Friendly. He graciously made me an extra copy, and I will be posting it on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So for those who want to see more, I have a YouTube channel called Crooked Doctors, one word. If you go to YouTube and you type in under search for one word, Crooked Doctors, you'll come to about over 110 videos that I did. I was invited to speak at Occupy because I'm in a knockdown, drag-out lawsuit with Yeshiva University, and they're a large religious institution located here in Manhattan on the Upper West Side in Washington Heights. And their medical school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University, is located in the Bronx. And in my case, they stipulated, so these are uncontested facts, these are admitted facts, they stipulated in my case to fraudulently inducing me into entering their medical school based on false promises in the admissions process. So as I'm trying to recover from the damage that this institution did to my life and try to get some restitution, I formed a group called Court Watchers. We're part of a Courtroom Observers Network, where it's a mutual witness protection program kind of thing. And in the process, we're hoping to take back our courts and try to fight against the corruption in our courts. And so Catherine very graciously introduced herself to me during Occupy, and she's offered as an artist, who, if you'd like to support her, I'm sure she'd be open to donations. But as an artist here and another fighter for truth, offered me this half an hour on her show. And I was thinking about it as I was listening to your previous guest. He was talking about, what's the role of government, what's the role of law. And I was talking to a constitutional scholar earlier today. The rule of law is to defend and further humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what we're doing. We're trying to help people. The law is not, made to beat on people. It's to further humanity, and not only it's to defend and further humanity, not only for individual people but for society as a whole. And one of the things that I just briefly, your previous guest had talked about, politicians, your local politicians respond to phone calls. Well, yes, they do. It's a wonderful political source of change to use. Before I went to medical school, I worked for Senator Moynihan's office, and we always paid attention to what constituents said. And in my Court Watchers group, in my Courtroom Observers Network, we call them phone blitzes, but we frequently use phone calls to the courts to find out what's going on. And this is one of the ways that we protect ourselves from a dishonest court system. And so as I'm fighting to try to get a little bit of restitution for myself, I'm joining forces with other people who are also fighting the corrupt court system, and we're hoping to take back our courts and to to try to stop as much as we can the corruption of our courts. So very graciously, the Occupy movement is sponsoring an event this Monday, September 28th, from about 10 in the morning to about 3 or 4-ish in the afternoon. And if you go on the Occupy website, I'm going to give you, I'm sorry, on their Facebook page. Let me just give you the, I'm just going to read it off their Facebook page. This is September 28th, Occupy the Courts. This is a citywide day of action. And we're all going to meet in front of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in downtown Lower Manhattan. This is 40 Foley Square, New York, New York. You can take the subway to the 4, 5, or 6 train. And I'm just going to read you a little bit about the announcement. So I'm going to read this off the Facebook page. So if you go to, let me just read you the address, the URL address for the Facebook page so you can follow along a little bit. It's on www.facebook.com/events/ and here's a string of numbers 1-0-2-4-8-2-5-0-0-9-0-6-4-4-9 /. And so that will take you to the Occupy the Courts. It'll take you to the Facebook page to the events section.
I mean, would it be easier to just look up Occupy the Courts on Facebook? I mean,
I guess you could. I usually live on YouTube and blog sites, so I don't Facebook as much as everybody else. But I guess you could. But let me read you their announcement, because here this will kind of succinctly tell you what we're doing. I run a local court watchers group. We do have groups nationwide. We started as the Courtroom Observers Network, and this was a tactic that we used when I worked for Women Organized Against Rape before I went to college and medical school. And frequently, when women would try to go into the courts to get some justice, they would refer to the criminal justice system as a second rape of the victim. So I joined a group called Women Organized Against Rape. We would work in the emergency rooms of hospitals, and we would also go to court with women so they wouldn't be there alone and get beat up on, figuratively speaking, not literally, by the prosecutor and the corrupt court system. And because we all worked together, we managed to change federal law so it was fairer to rape survivors. So when I started trying to litigate against Yeshiva University to get some restitution in my case, I had the great good fortune of having local activists like you, Catherine, help me. And one of those local activists was a very wonderful man named Rob Kozowski, who has been running the Nassau County Civic Association for the last 20 years, and he's fighting crime and corruption in Nassau County. And he warns everyone, do not go to court alone. Go with your family, go with your friends, go with your local court watchers group. Bring yellow pads, take notes, let people know that you're there, because it's very easy to take advantage of you when you're alone.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, and a classic tactic, and this is like, what I'm putting together, I think, is like the dirty lawyer's playbook. I mean, they almost go to the same dirty lawyer school. And one tactic that they use is they will particularly target pro se litigants, and what they'll do is, and they do it in landlord-tenant court too. It's really horrible if they think you're a pro se litigant. They'll take everybody else ahead of you, and then when the courtroom is empty and there's no witnesses and you're there alone, that's when they'll start all the dirty tricks.
Yeah, that's pretty despicable. I mean, it's like, is there anything in this country that isn't corrupt? Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, no, they are. It's sociopathic. It's extremely sociopathic, and this goes back to what is the role of law? The role of law, the higher ground, is the role of law and the role of government and society is to defend and further humanity. Right? This is what King James law was all about. mean, when we're establishing our legal system, hundreds of years ago, King James law is saying, it speaks to every human being being empowered to realize their fullest potential. And it's where King James law is saying, I am the state. I am required to recognize gross misconduct, gross miscarriages of justice, and to correct them immediately. And this is what our state is supposed to be, and it's been perverted. So and King James law recognizes the inherent evil nature of man, and so we're making the law to further humanity.
I don't think man is naturally evil. I just think that it's this, it comes from the top, and people, they just go along instead of fighting back. I mean, they take it out, and and it's the most innocent and vulnerable people, and the future, basically, like, that's being completely screwed.
Oh, no, no question that there are, we've been trained to be the sheeple and the sheep people, and hence the name of your radio, wake up. So, but our court systems are horribly corrupt, and unfortunately, we've allowed our government to be taken from us. I don't know how this happened, but it did. It got especially bad over the last 2 generations. So let me read you some of the things that we're doing in Court Watchers. As we tend to be a group like mutual protection and help, and some of us are fighting court battles, some will be fighting court battles, some are just people of good conscience who help, and local activists like yourself. So let me read you back what Occupy has graciously decided to do. Is we're having a citywide day of action. Let me read you their announcement, and then I can elaborate a little further. So this is Occupy the Courts, Take Back Courts. I'm reading this back off the Facebook page. Has this ever happened to you? Have you or anyone you know been bullied by a prosecutor? Have you or anybody you know been lied to or bullied into taking a bench trial when you should have gotten a jury trial, even for something as minor as a traffic ticket? Have you had your paperwork tampered with when you tried to represent yourself? Have your rights been violated by a judge who refused to recuse himself? Has this ever happened to you? Has a dishonest lawyer violated your rights with dirty tricks? Well, here's a remedy that we can offer you. You can go to the foreman of a grand jury, in this case it's a federal grand jury, to start an inquiry that may get you a remedy and make you whole again. So join us for this citywide day of action, and for a citywide day of action against the corrupt court judicial system here in New York City, and learn about your rights to solicit the federal grand jury system if you've ever been wronged by the police, the sheriff department, or any branch of the state. In fact, for violations of your constitutionally protected rights, these are your constitutionally protected and guaranteed rights, a prosecutor, like the U.S. prosecutor, the U.S. attorney, must prosecute the wrongdoers against you, even if the wrongdoers or the wrongdoer was a judge, the police, or another prosecutor. And you can Google Judge Broderick's opinion in this case in the matter of in re grand jury application. And if you want to look this up, it's the citation is 617 Fed Sup 199, a case from 1985, for example. So if you've ever had your constitutionally protected rights violated, your right to due process, if your property rights have been violated, you can reach out to your grand jury. And we're going through this exercise on Monday, September 28th. You don't have to do it alone. You can come and do it with us. And basically at 40 Foley Square in Manhattan, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals is located at 40 Foley Square. And what we're going to do is you walk up to the second floor of the courthouse, and you'll see a little sign that says Grand Jury, and you knock on the door. A secretary will come in, or administrator or administrative assistant or some clerk will come and answer the door, and you'll say, this is my name and my phone number. I'd like to make an appointment to speak with the foreman of the grand jury. Please give them my contact information. You don't have to tell them that you're a crime victim. You don't have to tell them anything. It's your right. if you look up a Supreme Court case called U.S. versus Williams, and I'll type it into the chat room soon, it's your right to reach out to the grand jury. So you go down to 40 Foley Square, second floor, you knock on the door, you give your name and your phone number or your contact information to the person that answers, and you say, I'd like to make an appointment in like two or 3 weeks or so to sit down with the foreman of the federal grand jury to start an inquiry into the transgressions against me. And you can do this if everybody out there wants to educate themselves a little bit about our constitutional system. I would encourage them to look up the case U.S. versus Williams. And you don't really want to get all caught up in the details of the government's case against Williams. What you want to look at and pay attention to is Supreme Court Judge Anton Scalia's opining about the nature of the federal grand jury, about the nature of the grand jury. And what he says in this Supreme Court case is he's, in his dicta, as he's opining, he's educating us. And what he says is the grand jury is like the fourth independent branch of government, right? We're not taught about our Constitution. We're supposed to be, but we're kept deliberately dumbed down, right, as the sheep people. So it's our responsibility to educate ourselves and not allow our government to take advantage of us. In fact, our government should fear us. We should not fear our government.
Exactly.
So, Judge Scalia is opining on the nature of the grand jury, and he says, the grand jury is like the fourth independent branch of government. There's the legislative branch, the judicial branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. And the grand jury is like the fourth independent branch. And you have the grand jury it acts independent of the other branches of government. It can look into anything, even if it wants to reassure itself that no wrongdoing is going on. And you have every right to contact your federal grand jury. And this is a safety control device. This is like, let's say your public officials, like your district attorney and your law enforcement and your police, are all the bad guys. Well, what do? This is like the problems that black people had in the Jim Crow South. You couldn't go to your sheriff because your sheriff was the Klansman. Right. You couldn't go to the judge because the judge like married to the sheriff's daughter, and they're all in on it, right? So there you are living in the Jim Crow South, and you're suffering horribly because you're being murdered. You're a black person in the Jim Crow South. You can't go to law enforcement because law enforcement is all the white supremacists are keeping you down. What do? Well, you're supposed to be able to go to your federal grand jury, and they're supposed to start an investigation into crimes in their district. And this is what Judge Broderick says in the case that I cited in the matter of in re grand jury application, Judge Broderick recognizes, and he says this, for constitutional violations, the U.S. attorney must, not may, but must prosecute the wrongdoers against you.
And what if they don't? I mean,
They must. It's not optional. It's not optional whether. Think about this. Our federal Constitution is our founding document. So it's not a matter of, the U.S. attorney or the federal prosecutor is going to, sometimes we prosecute for violations of the Constitution, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we obey the Constitution, sometimes we don't. That's called treason.
Right. But they do it. I mean, they do it.
That's why we're putting a stop to it. That's why we're educating people, and we're putting a stop to it. In fact, in another Supreme Court case, Cole State Hospital Superintendent et al. Versus Richardson, and if you want to look this up for yourself, it's 405 U.S. 676. In this case, it says that illegal, unconstitutional conduct is sedition. It's subversion. It's when the judicial officers and law enforcement and the members of the Department of Justice are engaged in a seditious insurrection against the American people and our Constitution. This is the enemy within. This is the domestic enemy. Absolutely. And so what we find oftentimes when we go into court, we all have the experience that judges violate our constitutionally protected rights. And when we protest and we ask the judge to recuse themselves, we get some phony baloney excuse that the judge has immunity. The judge does not have immunity. The judge has some qualified immunity if, as an employee, for example, let's say you have a judge who's employed by the state of New York, if the judge is acting on the higher moral ground, if the judge is obeying the United States and the state constitution, if the judge is obeying the law, if the judge is doing the best they can in difficult circumstances and accidentally, oops, something goes wrong,
right,
then the judge gets, for example, in New York State, would get a free defense from the state attorney general's office, and what would be addressed is, oops, something that went wrong. But when a judge violates the Constitution, violates the New York State Constitution, breaks the law, breaks their own rules, they have no immunity. They are then stripped of their official character, and they become people. Well, actually, they become persons. They don't become enforcers of the law or bastions of the law. They become trespassers on the law.
Exactly.
They become criminals.
They're the opposite of a judge.
Exactly.
Just like money is the opposite of value. And I mean, I try to explain that to people. I mean, like Harrison was just on before you talking about the Fed, and I just feel completely compelled to just point out the basic fact that a lot of people don't know, and for those that do, I feel like it needs to be constantly reminded that our money is notes of debt, which is the actual opposite of having any value whatsoever. And I don't see how we can be living in a society that circulates for debt monetary system without the behavior of everyone that is following it also being in the debt deficient side.
See, this is a very good point. Happened because we've moved away from our Constitution. Our Constitution mandated that our money was backed by gold and silver. So as we move away from our Constitution, as we break our Constitution, you can see that this is the enemy within. This is the war against the American people made from the domestic enemy. So just like as we're destroying our monetary system by not being true to our Constitution, we're also destroying our courts by not being true to our Constitution. So part of what we're doing in this with Occupy is to learn about our Constitution and be true to our Constitution. That's not radical.
Right. Well, I mean, that we have just about like 2 minutes left, so I just wanted to the American people, I mean, how is it that they have accepted this? Like, this is what I understand it in a sense, because it's like a catch-22 in the fact that people don't know their rights. But by this point, it is just so corrupt and out of control by now that I really just don't understand, like, why more people are not up in arms about this.
Well, certainly this would make for fascinating future shows, and I look forward to hopefully being a part of those, Catherine, and I thank you for having me on your show today. So if you want to learn some more about your Constitution, if we've whetted your appetite a little bit, please join us on Monday, September 28th, between 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. If you happen to be a victim of if your constitutionally guaranteed and protected rights were violated, you have every right to join us in this exercise where people throughout the day will be going up to the second floor on 40 Foley Square, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, knocking on the door, giving the person who answers their name and contact information, and starting an inquiry with the grand jury. And remember, for constitutional violations and for racketeering, which includes payment of an illegal debt, our U.S. attorney, that would be Preet Bharara, must prosecute the wrongdoers.
So do people, in order to do that, do you have to have something against you or something, like something in court that you're battling?
No.
Okay.
If you read U.S. versus Williams, the grand jury can investigate just to make sure that nothing bad is going on. And remember, this exercise that we're doing on the 28th is not for you to present your case to a grand jury. All you're doing is knocking on the door, and some secretary will come out, and you'll say, I'd like to make an appointment to speak with the foreman of the grand jury. Please give my name and phone number. And you look forward to meeting with them in like 2 or 3 weeks, and you're going to sit down in a room with the foreman of the grand jury and 2 or 3 people, and go forward with, okay, what's wrong? How can we help you? And if you happen to be a person like me who's being victimized by racketeering by Yeshiva University's medical school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and whose constitutionally protected rights are being violated by Yeshiva University and the Manhattan District Attorney, well then, Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney, must prosecute wrongdoers. So join us, learn about your constitutionally protected rights and what you can do to take your courts back. Let's occupy the courts.
Thank you so much, Lydia Radin. Check the Facebook event page, Occupy the Courts. I appreciate your being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great night.
You too.
Welcome to Organic News with Kat Waters, revealing the truths behind the conspiracy. Every Tuesday from 6 to 8 Eastern.
Okay, so it keeps doing that. It goes right into the next song. Okay, thank you for tuning in. Please, I want to encourage everyone to go to my YouTube channel, April Waters with double T. Please make a donation so I can keep doing this radio show. And just Sunday in colonial, historic Kingston, New York, at the most historic intersection in America, they held Occupy Peace rally with Gerald Celente, who's frequently on the Alex Jones show, and he's from Trends Research, and he runs the Trends Journal. Those videos can be found on my YouTube channel. Ralph Nader was the keynote speaker, along with Gary Null and Cindy Sheehan, and one of those videos I'm going to play in the last half an hour. The PayPal link to make a donation is on my YouTube channel. So please, please support independent media. And so the next guest, Antoinette Gordino, is
Hello.
Annette?
Yes.
Thank you for joining me on Organic News on Awake Radio. Annette Gordino from Physicians for Single Payer Healthcare?
Physicians for a National Health
National,
Program.
sorry. I have a... Okay, yeah, thank you so much. So explain what Physicians for National Health Plan.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me.
Sure.
I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to talk about PNHP and the work that we're doing. Physicians for a National Health Program, I work with the New York City chapter. It's a nationwide organization of thousands of physicians that organize and advocate for universal health care here in the U.S. I'm also the statewide coordinator for the Campaign for New York Health. And the Campaign for New York Health is a coalition dedicated to bringing universal health care to New York State through passing the New York Health Act, which is a bill that's currently in the New York State legislature. And we passed the bill through the Assembly last year in May, a vote of 92 to 52, almost a 2-to-1 margin. Right now, we're trying to tackle the Senate, the upper house. We have 20 co-sponsors signed on to the bill, and we need 12 more votes in order to pass it through the Senate and get it on the governor's desk. So we're working this year to build our support in the Senate.
And so how is this comparing to Obamacare? Like, can you, go ahead, like compare the two.
Sure. The ACA really helped millions of people across the country. I think the last estimate I saw was something like 8 to 10 million people now have access to the private insurance market through the ACA. But it's important to understand that the ACA was never going to transform the healthcare system because it was only really designed to tackle the 4% of Americans who either buy insurance for themselves because they're freelancers or work for a company that's so small that it doesn't provide them with health insurance. So it was only designed to open up the market and to protect people who are in the individual private insurance market. And it was also designed to keep the majority of our system intact. So most people get their insurance from their job through a private insurance company. And then we have other programs like Medicare that covers anybody over 65. We have the VA for veterans. We have some federal money that comes through the Children's Health Program that goes to states to cover children. And then we have Medicaid. Medicaid is paid for by states and the federal government together. So with all these programs and with the ACA helping people get insurance, we still have 33 million people who have no insurance, no coverage through Medicare, no coverage through Medicaid. And that's the problem. What the New York Health Act would do is the only requirement for having healthcare, access to healthcare, would be being a New York State resident. From age -9 months to the rest of your life, if you're a resident of New York State, you would get access to care. That care would be free to you at the point of delivery. That means you wouldn't have to bring your wallet to the doctor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it affordable?
Yes. So for average person, you don't have to bring your wallet to the doctor. No copays, no deductibles, no out-of-pocket costs when you go to the doctor. Why? Because we know that out-of-pocket costs are barriers to people. The Kaiser Foundation just released a report. 24% of Americans reported not filling a prescription because they couldn't afford the copay. 34% of Americans report themselves or someone in their family not going to the doctor because they can't afford a copay or an out-of-pocket cost. The reason that we're able to do this, cover everybody, and when I say New York State residents, I mean without regard to your federal immigration status. If you're here and living in New York, you would be covered. Why are we able to do this? Cover everybody and not charge you anything at the door. Because right now, our healthcare system, about 25 to 30% of every dollar that we spend goes either to an administration, doesn't go to pay a doctor or a nurse or a clinic, it goes to an administrator,
And some of that money goes right up to the top of the CEOs of the insurance companies who make tens of millions of dollars. And most of these companies are publicly traded on the stock exchange. So they're also trying to keep their stock market value up and pay dividends to their investors. So because we have profit in our system, so much of our healthcare dollars just doesn't go to healthcare. And when we stop doing that, we'll see that there's plenty of money left for everyone.
See, this is like, you know, when I really, really have to start scratching my head because, I mean, I really, you know, along with the for-profit prison system, I mean, like, I'm completely, my mind is boggled that we live in this kind of a country. Like, I literally cannot believe, I mean, I don't know, call me naive, call me, I mean, this makes absolutely no sense to me. And how people put up with it just, it blows my mind. I mean, how do we put up with for-profit health? I mean, like, clearly it doesn't work, and clearly, you know, they're going to be making the money at the top and wanting to keep people sick. You know, and like I was just saying to the two previous guests before you, you know, who, you know, all three of you spoke at the 4th anniversary at Occupy Wall Street that everybody thinks is dead, but really isn't, is that so just like the monetary system and just like the court system, and now you're talking about healthcare, it's like the, you know, fiat currency. It is the opposite of value. So the healthcare system, it's the opposite of healthcare. The so-called justice system, it's as long as there's a profit motive, it's like no-brainer that it's going to be the opposite of what they're calling it. And for, I mean, like, that is not rocket science. I mean, how do people go along with that?
That's a really good question. I mean, one thing that we need to remember is that among rich countries, we are the outlier. We spend twice as much per person to not even cover everybody, and we're the only one that allows profit in our system. Even some countries like Switzerland or the Netherlands that have a system where you pick a insurance plan, right, that you go on, and they do have some out-of-pocket costs. What they call an insurance company there is a completely different animal. Those insurance plans are nonprofit. Their CEO might make 6 figures, but they don't make tens of millions of dollars. What must be covered under those plans is really strictly regulated so that everybody gets access to preventative care and the whole range of medical services, as opposed to here where insurance companies can pick and choose. They don't have to deal with, like, is their doctor in network or out of network? If, you know, basically you're covered in the entire country. All the physicians in the countries are part of these plans. So even in countries that don't have, like, you know, a purely publicly funded system with no out-of-pocket costs, what they consider, you know, like the bottom, you know, the basic plan and what insurance companies should do is completely different from ours, which is so infected by finance, high finance, Wall Street. You're seeing it right now. It's been hitting the news. These hedge funds and these investors who are buying up drugs that big pharmaceutical companies just don't want to deal with anymore, and jacking up the price by 5,000%, 6,000% overnight, you know, and you know, that can only happen in a system where we don't recognize that healthcare is a human right, and we instead see it as a way for people to profit off of illness and suffering. And it's morally reprehensible, and it doesn't even make any financial sense.
But also, I'm going to point out the fact that because, you know, war is also for profit, and that is, you know, I would, you know, like the biggest expense. You know, like that's like sort of, I would imagine it's the kind of largest for-profit, institution, I mean, everyone is talking about the military industrial complex and how it has to end because, and, you know,
and that affects healthcare too in 2 ways. One, on the one hand, you've got the VA, right? And the VA, everybody loves to kick the VA. The VA is the closest that we have basically to socialized medicine. Everyone that works for the VA is a public employee. It's funded through our tax dollars. It gets budgets. I have friends, I'm a speech therapist. I have friends who work in the VA as physical therapists. They love it because patients come in, they see them. If they need equipment, they go to the storeroom, they give them what they need. And it's just the simplest, best way to do healthcare. But what happens is it doesn't get the respect it deserves, and then they'd rather build a bomber than take care of the veterans that result from the wars that we fight. And it's even worse than that because the military has its own healthcare service. So while you're active duty, you see military doctors. And we know, PNHP heard this at a forum that we did last year on Veterans Day, that military doctors will give people dishonorable discharges so that they can't access VA services. Or if they have an issue, they'll say, you know what, let's not take care of this now. Just wait until you get the VA. And they push, costs onto the VA, or they deny veterans care. And it's a game. It's a rigged game, and they're playing with people's lives.